So one of the services that we offer at Noonan is engine freshen up. We're going to walk through just a quick engine tear down and what we look for, and it's part of the process that we go through at Noonan to get everything torn down. So we'll start by taking the valve covers off, getting all the headgear off, removing the rockers, checking to make sure that there's no damage, feeling the rollers, ensuring that there's no binding or anything that would give us a problem down the road. From there, once you have everything loose, we'll pull the push rods off, stack those up to where we can inspect those down the road, keep them in line with what cylinder they came out of, and using our racks and our staging equipment to our advantage, and making sure that we keep everything in order. From here, we'll take all of our rocker gear off. So the reed rocker systems that we use, they come on a stand. Those can be pulled off in one piece. Makes tear down pretty easy. And servicing at the racetrack for removing a cylinder head or anything like that, pretty quick. Here's where the workout comes in. So we got to pull the heads off, removing all of the head nuts that hold the cylinder heads on. Those go on torqued at 185 foot-pounds, so normally if you're going to break a sweat, this is where it starts coming in. We'll get all those nuts loose, pop the cylinder heads off, and this is the first time we'll be able to look into the combustion chamber and see how everything was living. At this point, we'll remove all of the lifters. We use, in our 4.9 block, we use the Jessel DLC coated Incho 62 lifters. These lifters are normally bulletproof. We do still inspect them. We also look in the bores for the lifter bushings to make sure that there's no wear or anything that we don't like there. From that point, we'll start disassembling or pulling off the cylinder head studs, getting those out of our way. That way we can start pulling the short block apart. We do use L19 head studs, so one of the important things here is we always want to keep all of your engine components clean. But when you pull this apart, when we're using our bare hands, we always want to make sure we keep everything oiled. L19 studs are known to rust really easily, so part of our procedure when we pull everything off, we'll make sure that when we put it in a bin, we always keep everything oiled. We'll pop our head gaskets off, make sure there's no damage there that we don't like. From here, it's getting the rest of the front end of the engine apart. We'll pull the idler assembly off, feel the bearings in it, make sure there's no binding. The belt hadn't caused any of the bearings in the pulleys to get upset. Then our fuel extension, we'll pull it off. That has some pretty important free play measurements in it, where you're checking the shaft for the fuel pump, make sure there's no strange torque loads or anything coming from the fuel pump. And from there, you're able to pull the camshaft out. So one of the things we'll look at is being super critical here to not ding any of the cam bearings, and also we want to inspect the camshaft, make sure there's no galling or any kind of conditions on there that would make us have unwanted friction on the lifters or on the cam bearing journals. So here we'll turn the engine over to where number one's at top dead center. That way when we loosen up our oil pump and all of our cam sync sensors and everything like that, everything is in place where we want it to be. And then we'll pull our mag drive off, which is part of the setup that we use for all of our cam sync equipment to run back to our ECU. One thing that we didn't show in this video is draining the oil. That is crucial. But from here, we'll drop the oil pan, expose the bottom end. That way we can get to all of our connecting rod bolts, get our rods and pistons pulled out. We do inspect the oil pan, make sure there's nothing in there that is odd or that the filter didn't catch. Put it on the shelf, get it cleaned up. Now it's time to pull the rods off, so loosen up all the bolts, be extra careful to not mess with the crankshaft journals on the rod end, and then we'll start pulling our pistons and rods out and labeling those. That way we know exactly which cylinder they came out. If we assemble the engine at Noonan, it'll have the number stamped on it, but we always like to still follow our procedure and put them back exactly in the same place and know where everything came out during our inspection process. We know exactly what hole that piston rod came out of. Here we'll inspect all of the rod journals on the crankshaft, see if there's anything there that we don't like, and then we'll go ahead and start our process for removing the crankshaft out of the block to get it inspected. Part of that is we'll have to remove the damper off the front of the engine, the degree ring, and then we'll get into loosening up our main caps and pulling our crankshaft out. Once we get our degree ring and everything loose, we'll pull our front cover off. That'll expose all of our timing gears. So that'll have your idler gear, crankshaft gear, everything that we use to turn all of our components in the front end of the engine. So we'll pull all of that loose, get everything together, and also inspect the bearings that are involved in that assembly. So now we're getting into the heart of the short block. We'll pull the main caps off, that way we can access our crankshaft. We always, if an engine comes in for freshen up, we'll have the crank mag tested, so we'll have it inspected for cracks or any kind of hairline fractures that we can't see under a microscope. To do that, we'll yank all of our main caps off, inspect all of the nuts and everything like that. Want to look for any kind of chatter if the engine got upset or anything. You could see some chatter under the main caps. The 4.9 uses the splayed main cap, so it eliminates a lot of that versus traditional platforms that are out there. But we always still inspect it. So we'll pop the caps off, give everything a look, and then send the crank off to get checked. We'll remove the main bearings of the crankshaft. Reading bearings is a little bit of an art in itself, but when we remove the bearings off from the crankshaft, whether it be from the rods or from the mains, it will give a good indication of how that engine was living, what kind of load it was subject to via the tune-up or just overall horsepower conditions. So analyzing the bearings that come out of the engine is crucial and something that we put a lot of time in reviewing. From there, we'll get everything measured up. We have all of our tolerances that we'll check all of our parts against, and we'll get whatever new parts we need and put this hot rod back together again.